I'm inviting here on the stage a lady that has so much to say about native advertising and creation of content. And actually this will put the full stop of the first part of our discussions here around the advertising stream. So here I invite Lindsay from Vox Media. Lindsay, please join me on the stage. It's a pleasure having you here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you're going to feel comfortable at our nice, cozy chairs. So please, I don't know, maybe this will fit you perfect.
Then you
can make it comfortable. So
you can make this a therapy
absolutely.
session.
So thanks for joining us, and I look forward to hear you flew around from the States for this discussion. So I will be happy to start with to hear from you. So where do you put the line between the content creation, the content marketing, and the native advertising? How does it? I mean, what's your perception there?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and often, and I'm guilty of this too, people put those two things together, and while most of the time when you have content marketing these days, you also have native advertising, but there is a meaningful distinction between the two. And content marketing is storytelling, right? Those are videos, those are articles, those are experiences, and there's lots of different ways to get those experiences or that content in front of the right audience. But native advertising is an ad product, right? I think we've dressed it up to be something really sexy, because that's what we do in advertising. We need something new. And native ads are just another way to distribute content using the design and the user experience that is native or familiar to a particular site or platform.
All right, great. It's a good start. So we set the understanding at the level. So what should marketeers be thinking of platform advertising from that perspective where we are?
I think marketers should be thinking about digital advertising in the same way that publishers are, which is people are experiencing content across the internet, right? So they no longer come to your homepage. They no longer seek out your .com. So how do you find those readers or those target customers wherever they are? And it's no different with native advertising or content marketing. So we co-brand programs with advertisers on one of our 8 brands. So we have Recode and SB Nation and Eater. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that program is going to run on eater.com. It might run on Facebook or Facebook Instant Articles or Google AMP or Twitter. And I think that that landscape is really changing, and we all need to be prepared for what that means and be prepared from a monetization standpoint, but also from a marketing standpoint, that readers' consumption behaviors don't look the way they did even just a year ago.
Look what a question we have here. Hopefully, guys, you're going to get part of this poll. So should marketers think about replacing their creative agencies with publishers? But let me ask you, what can publishers do better than agencies for brands?
I think publishers are great storytellers, right? So we have tons of data and legacy experience of connecting with our particular readers in our voice. So when you work with a publisher to create content, you're buying into that editorial intelligence and you're buying into their voice. And they also, the other thing that they do that a creative agency can't necessarily do is they own the entire ecosystem, right? So we're not only creating the content, but we're also distributing it, we're reporting on it, and we're feeding those insights back into the process so that the next time, hopefully, we work with that brand or work with other brands, we're that much smarter about the things that are going to get readers to do a particular thing that's meaningful to the brand.
So, okay, then I think there are quite a lot of marketers here and CMOs, brands represented in the room. What do you think they should do, but they don't? What do you think they should want, but they don't? They should demand, but they don't?
I think, at least in my experience, brands are really fickle, right? They don't want to lean far enough in. They want to constantly be in this mode where they're testing the waters. And what that doesn't allow them to do is actually benefit from the insights that at least publishers like ours have access to. So what we need from brands are longer-term partnerships, long-term relationships. Oftentimes, an advertiser will come to us and just want to make 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of content. But we have the opportunity to learn so much over time. And with a deeper investment, we can just get that much smarter moving forward. And we can also make your media dollars and your content investment dollars work a lot harder if we can actually put that data and those insights to work.
So, okay, we were talking about data here a lot. So, what is the role of data in the whole creative process? Is there such, and how do you use it? Because data acquisition is one, and then data analysis is two, and then further involving all this data into the creative process, three. And I don't think that many people actually do this. And we saw we had a poll, and people saying, yeah, around 40% were saying, I do that from gut feeling. Yes, I do integrate some data, but partial, and then I do it furthermore, understanding the market. And we're still in the process of, I am the CMO, I know what I'm doing, right?
I mean, I think we like to look at it as a balance of art and science. I mean, I run a very large creative organization within a media company, and I think a lot of people that work for me would be sort of devastated to think that, data can sort of make all of the creative calls. I think what it does do, though, is it helps you understand reader sentiment. It helps you understand what people are engaging with. And then in sort of the sophisticated end of it, if you map it back to KPIs that are hopefully tethered to real business goals, you can actually use that data to drive reader performance. So what I mean by that is, if you are using content to actually drive conversion, well, I would probably want to know whether or not conversion is most likely to happen if someone spends 2 minutes with a piece of content versus 30 seconds, or is it 10 minutes? Or is it that they're 10x more likely to convert if they share something? Or maybe it's not about sharing at all, but it's just about reading 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of content within a certain period of time. So I think that's what we're spending a lot of time, at least at Box, thinking about and trying to measure is what are the actual signals, right? So that's the important part about data, is making sure you're asking the right questions and you're tracking the right things. And so in terms of content, how can we figure out what it is that a reader or user needs to do in order to actually impact some sort of measurable business goal? And that's where I think data has a role, both in terms of helping level set what type of creative output you're going to make, but then also how you distribute that content, how you package and position that content so that it actually has meaningful value for a marketer.
So I'm interested to hear what is the process. So how do you follow up on that process and the results, and how do you fine-tune them on the way? I mean, how did you build all that?
So we look at it on sort of 2 levels. So at the native advertising level, you actually have an opportunity to mitigate a lot of creative risk, right? So if you think about when you go to the homepage, and I know Mashable was up here earlier, you have a bunch of different stories you can click on, and the thing that you gravitate towards is a headline and an image. So we've actually built a tool that you can test up to 9,000 different combinations of headlines and images.
Wow.
And you might be attracted to something that's different for me. And so we can actually sort of go one layer deeper and not just pick the highest performing headline and image combination, but we can actually pick the combination for a specific audience set. So if we find that men from the East Coast versus women from the West Coast, we could segment there. If we find that people coming in from Facebook are more likely to click on a different type of headline, we can optimize against that. And so that's the sort of first part of it, is getting people into content is the hardest part. The second is actually looking at what happens on the page. So are readers jumping out 10 seconds in? Well, maybe you misled them with a clicky headline. Are they watching, 2 videos instead of 1? Are they getting to the end? And that can start, delivering some meaningful metrics that you can use the next time around.
So from a publishers, I see the video that I guess you wanted there played behind us.
Yep. So this is
Creative.
sort of a highlight reel. Vox Creative is the agency that I look after, and I think that's just some various branded content campaigns that we've done this year.
Edit one more time. So from a obviously, you are a trendsetter. That's the reason we invited you, and we are so delighted to have you here. And that's why we also wanted to have content producers like Mashable and those that, I mean, we don't have the traditional media that much here rather than what is next. But until I reach to that question, as a publisher, how did native advertising change your perception towards the advertising revenue and perspective over it?
So our monetization strategy has changed completely since the rise of native advertising. So in our portfolio of business, it drives about 50% of total display revenue. And I think I always caution to say that that doesn't mean that that's 50% of line items or native advertising. What it's done is it's changed the game in terms of why people advertise with us versus a competitive publisher that may, index similarly on ComScore. We think about native advertising and content as sort of a value add, right? Which in a lot of different publishers look at it really differently. But for us, it's an opportunity to basically incentivize an advertiser to go deeper with us as a business, and to also think about new ways to reach advertisers that are actually really successful. We've seen a 30% performance lift on our properties with native advertising versus regular display. So I think it's not only really a really healthy business for us, but also it's fantastic because we can actually offer something back to advertisers that really works.
Lindsay, I announced you here, just inviting you on the stage, but I wanted people to know you were listed into Advertising Age's as Women to Watch, and recently has been nominating one of the most powerful women in mobile advertising by Business Insider. And how many of, I guess you've read the SB Nation, The Verge, Recalled, Cured, Easter, Rack, Polygon, of course, Vox.com. I mean, how do you do this? And you don't stop traveling, I guess, at the same time. So you're a superstar rising right now.
Well, it's very difficult to operate on jet lag, I'm learning. I don't know, maybe that's the hardest question of all. I mean, I think to be successful in our space, you have to be nimble, you have to take a lot of risks, you have to be an entrepreneur at sometimes a large company. I'm super grateful to be able to work at Vox Media. We just had a big investment from NBC Universal, so that's paved the way for us to do some really interesting things, especially with brands that actually combine digital and linear. So it's sort of funny that they're looking to us to help sort of teach them about digital, and we're sort of equally as excited to learn about linear and OTT opportunities. And I think for brands, the thing that I always hear is that creating content is really hard, right? There's approvals, there's brainstorms, there's kickoff meetings, there's data, there's all of these things.
And now you have data, and now you have
there's
packaging,
creative insights,
technology.
There's design, I mean, there's video production, there's shoots across the world. I mean, all of this is just a lot more complicated than running banner ads. And sometimes we joke that when we get a big insertion order for banner ads, it's like we ring the bell, like, thank God, right? This other stuff is really, really difficult. And so I think the feedback we're getting are brands want to do content, right? They understand that it's a meaningful part of their marketing diet, but they don't want to do it with 50 different partners. It's just too difficult. And so what we're really excited about is how do we actually put together campaigns where you might see, one of these videos that you watched right behind us, but you might also see it on TV. And you're going to see it across our portfolio, and you're also going to be able to see it on Facebook. And how can we use data to actually track a user wherever they are, give them a sequential experience with a brand, and do that at scale so that, advertisers don't have to sort of reinvent the wheel over and over again.
Absolutely. Let's stop here. Thank you so much for being with me, and
thanks
for joining us here at Digitimea by Webit. Thank you very much, Lindsay. Thank you all for being with us so far. We just stopped for a lunch break, and there is a very interesting press conference going upstairs with light lunch. So please join us there at the Challenger stage.